When an aircraft crosses the threshold into dense cloud cover, the pilot immediately loses all external visual reference. The horizon disappears, and the physical isolation of instrument meteorological conditions begins. Inside that environment, the technical requirements of flight remain unchanged. Flying straight requires maintaining a constant heading with coordinated rudder pressure, and flying level requires holding a constant altitude. But the human vestibular system is wired for a visible horizon. Deprived of visual inputs, the inner ear begins to send conflicting signals to the brain. The intuitive, physical perception of what feels straight and level becomes unreliable. Mathematically perfect level flight does not exist in practice. Due to constant atmospheric variations, level flight is actually a continuous series of microclimbs and descents, requiring precise, ongoing corrections. To maintain stability without visual cues, pilots do not react to individual needles as they move. They operate within a strict conceptual framework known as the control and performance system. This system categorizes instruments to separate the pilot's instantaneous mechanical inputs from the delayed aerodynamic results. This structure allows the pilot to maintain a stable flight path by ignoring the momentary fluctuations of lagging indicators. The foundation of this system rests on two primary control instruments: the attitude indicator, which shows pitch and bank, and the power indicator, which displays engine output. These instruments provide direct, instantaneous feedback. This is the only place in the cockpit where the pilot actively sets the desired state of the aircraft. The rest of the standard six-pack, the altimeter, the vertical speed indicator, the airspeed indicator, and the heading indicator, function strictly as performance instruments. Performance instruments do not dictate a pilot's immediate action. They exist to display the physical, aerodynamic results of the inputs already made on the control instruments. This distinction handles aerodynamic lag. When the pilot pulls the yoke, the attitude indicator pitches instantly. The aircraft's mass delays response, leaving the altimeter and VSI static initially. As the plane climbs, the VSI registers the trend well before the altimeter needle moves. In smooth air, reading the VSI provides the leading edge of performance feedback. It allows the pilot to recognize and correct a deviation before the altimeter even moves off its mark. Level flight does not equate to a single, universal pitch attitude. The exact position of the nose on the horizon changes depending on the speed of the aircraft. In the lift equation, pilot controls angle of attack, pitch, and airspeed. In low-speed cruise, low airspeed requires a high angle of attack, showing a nose-high pitch. Conversely, high-speed cruise uses high airspeed and low angle of attack, resulting in a level pitch indication. The weight of the aircraft shifts these requirements entirely. A heavier aircraft demands a greater lift force, forcing the pilot to hold a higher pitch attitude just to maintain the exact same cruise speed. Maintaining a specific altitude requires the pilot to locate the precise equilibrium between pitch and power for the aircraft's current weight and configuration. Correcting deviations from that equilibrium is an exercise in energy management. The aircraft carries kinetic energy in the form of airspeed and potential energy in the form of altitude. When an aircraft drifts off its assigned altitude by 100 feet or less, the pilot executes the correction using pitch alone, leaving the throttle untouched. For a slight, inadvertent descent, the pilot raises the pitch by half a bar width on the attitude indicator. This creates a slight zoom, trading excess kinetic energy from the airspeed for the potential energy needed to regain the altitude. The inverse applies to a slight climb. The pilot lowers the pitch by half a bar width, executing a gentle dive that trades excess potential energy back into kinetic energy, accelerating the aircraft slightly as it descends to the correct altitude. These minor errors are resolved without generating new energy from the engine. The pilot simply shuffles the existing energy within the system back and forth until equilibrium is restored. Deviations exceeding 100 feet require a different approach. Pitch adjustments alone will cause unacceptable losses in airspeed. The pilot must alter the total energy state of the system using engine power. When recovering from a significant drop, first arrest the descent by leveling pitch. Next, simultaneously raise pitch and add power to climb. Finally, upon reaching the target altitude, lower the nose and reduce throttle to standard cruise settings. To avoid overshooting the target altitude during this process, pilots use a simple limit. The rate of climb or descent shown on the VSI should never exceed the total number of feet the aircraft is off altitude. Recovering from a high altitude deviation uses the exact inverse sequence. Arrest the climb, lower the pitch while temporarily cutting power to prevent an airspeed spike, and finally re-establish cruise settings once on target. Large corrections demand specific sequential inputs. The pilot manages the energy state algorithmically rather than reacting reflexively to the yoke. While the attitude indicator is the master instrument for control, it relies on a mechanical gyroscope, which is susceptible to specific physical errors. Strenuous maneuvers or sustained turns can induce gyroscopic precession, small internal friction errors that cause the artificial horizon bar to drift out of alignment with the actual horizon. This creates a dangerous contradiction. The attitude indicator shows perfectly level flight, yet the heading indicator ticks downward, and the turn coordinator shows a banked, slipping aircraft. The master control is lying. The pilot must default to performance instruments to maintain physical control. The mitigation strategy requires immediate mechanical isolation. Apply rudder pressure to center the ball. Input aileron to hold the specific heading on the HI, and maintain that state until the attitude indicator's gyroscope self-corrects. True spatial orientation requires cross-referencing the entire data matrix. Relying heavily on a single readout leaves the pilot vulnerable to mechanical deception. Every maneuver we have covered, from minor pitch adjustments to full energy recoveries, relies on a three-part process: a continuous instrument scan, an accurate interpretation of the data, and precise aircraft control. If the aircraft is out of trim, the pilot must constantly apply physical pressure to the yoke to maintain altitude. This induces rapid mental and physical fatigue, which causes the pilot's instrument scan to break down. To verify the trim stake, the pilot momentarily releases all pressure on the yoke. If the aircraft maintains its pitch attitude independently, the aerodynamic forces are balanced. Instrument flight is not a process of wrestling with the airframe or chasing moving needles. Pilots calculate the required energy state, dial in the correct attitude and power, verify the results on the performance instruments, and allow the physics of a trimmed aircraft to hold the line.